The tackle industry charges you $30 for jointed swimbaits, perfectly painted and engineered in sterile laboratories to swim in a flawless, predictable line. But I took a discarded metal bottle cap, a piece of trash I dug out of the mud near a local boat ramp. I folded that 0-cent scrap of metal with a pair of rusted pliers, pitched it into the dark water, and completely dismantled the results of the professional anglers around me on the very first cast. Welcome to the truth that the multi-billion-dollar fishing industry has spent decades trying to suppress. When you walk down the aisles of any major sporting goods store, you see works of absolute art. You see lures with laser-etched gill plates, 3D holographic eyes, and chemically perfected finishes. The industry wants you to believe that a predatory fish evaluates its prey like an art critic, inspecting the geometric perfection of the bait before deciding to strike. But the raw neurobiology and fluid dynamics of the aquatic world do not support this corporate business model. Apex predators, like mature largemouth bass and giant walleye, are biologically programmed to conserve caloric energy. They do not want to chase down a perfectly healthy, fast-moving baitfish. They are constantly scanning the water column for anomalies. They look for weakness. They look for chaos. And today, we are going to dive deeply into the metallurgical science and hydrodynamic physics of why an upcycled bottle cap lure creates a predatory trigger that modern injection-molded plastics simply cannot replicate. The core of this lure is the crown cork, a design patented way back in 1892, which is typically stamped from tin-plated steel or aluminum. In the aquatic environment, these specific metals offer a critical advantage: high spectral reflectance. Predatory fish are evolutionarily hardwired to respond to sudden flashes of light, which perfectly mimics the reflection of sunlight bouncing off the scales of a distressed or dying baitfish. By choosing a brightly colored or highly reflective cap, you are initiating the first stage of a biological trap, triggering a visual strike response from a massive distance. But the true genius of this discarded piece of trash lies in the physics of its transformation. The construction begins not by blindly smashing it flat with a hammer, but by taking a marker and drawing a precise line on the inside of the cap to divide it into two perfectly equal hemispheres. This establishes the crucial foundation of axial symmetry. By carefully folding the cap with a pair of heavy pliers along this mirrored axis, you ensure it retains a slight, hollow curve rather than being crushed completely flat. This internal hollow volume is mathematically critical as it influences the lure's water displacement and creates a natural resonance chamber. When you drag this newly folded asymmetrical body through the water, you are actively manipulating the hydrodynamic drag equation. As the water flows over the curved metallic surface, it creates alternating low-pressure zones on either side of the lure. This results in a phenomenon known in fluid dynamics as periodic vortex shedding. It is this precise shedding of vortices that generates the aggressive, erratic wobble, flawlessly mimicking the spasms of a dying minnow. However, this aggressive wobbling action creates an immense amount of physical torque on your fishing line. If tied directly to the monofilament or braid, the lure will spin uncontrollably, creating severe line twists that will eventually cause the line to snap under tension. To completely decouple this torque, the mechanical integration of a small barrel swivel at the attachment point is absolutely essential. The swivel allows the bottle cap to dance and spin wildly in the current while keeping your main line perfectly straight and structurally sound. Now, we move to the advanced bio-acoustic modifications that elevate this piece of garbage into a highly tuned sensory weapon. Predatory fish possess a highly developed lateral line system designed to feel low-frequency pressure changes, alongside internal otoliths that allow them to hear higher-frequency acoustic vibrations in the water. The bottle cap lure can be mechanically altered to target these specific auditory pathways based entirely on the clarity of your local water. If you are fishing in turbid, muddy, or stained water, visual stimuli are severely limited. You need an active acoustic trigger. Before crimping the bottle cap shut, take a pair of wire cutters and snip off the heads of several small round map pins. Place these tiny metal pinheads directly inside the hollow cavity of the cap, and then crimp the edges closed. As you retrieve the lure, these hard internal components violently strike the tin-plated steel walls, producing a high-frequency clicking sound in the kilohertz range. This internal rattle acts as an undeniable acoustic beacon, triggering an aggressive, territorial response from predators staging in the dark, mimicking the frantic distress signals of a crushed prey animal. But nature is highly situational. In heavily pressured, crystal-clear water, or during the brutal heat of a post-frontal cold snap, fish enter a passive, non-feeding state. In these delicate finesse scenarios, a loud mechanical rattle will actually repel cautious fish, acting as an acoustic alarm. To solve this, you build a silent running modification. Instead of metal pinheads, you fill the cap's internal cavity with soft chenille stems, commonly known as pipe cleaners. The dense fibers of the chenille completely dampen any internal vibration, altering the lure's displacement profile to emit minimal frequencies below 20 Hz. It glides through the clear water with a silent, ghostly profile, presenting what appears to be an incredibly easy, non-threatening meal to a lethargic base. To further enhance the realism of this trap, you can execute a brilliant soft tissue mimicry hack using nothing but a cheap piece of paracord. Cut a 1.5-inch piece of paracord, pull out the internal nylon strands, and aggressively fray the outer sheath. Slide this frayed material over the shank of your small treble hook, and use a lighter to melt the nylon directly onto the steel. In the water, these frayed fibers pulse, breathe, and flare outward. They perfectly mimic the tactile stimulus of a baitfish's fins or a large insect's legs, giving the predator a realistic, soft target to lock its jaws onto, drastically improving your hookup ratio. The integration of these components, the tin-plated steel chassis, the high-carbon treble hooks, the stainless steel split rings, and the brass barrel swivels, creates a lure that is structurally superior to many injection-molded plastics on the market. But the multi-billion-dollar tackle industry desperately wants you to ignore this raw physics. They need you to believe that effective angling requires a constant stream of disposable income. They rely on your frustration to sell you a new color, a new jointed swim bait, or a new glass rattle every single season. A 0-cent lure pulled from the recycling bin shatters their entire cycle of planned obsolescence. We are building an uncompromising community of anglers who refuse to be manipulated by corporate marketing. We rely on the raw physics of water, forgotten biological triggers, and the artisanal survival tackle that our grandfathers used to put protein on the table during the hardest economic times in history. If you are ready to stop funding the tackle industry's quarterly earnings and start mastering the actual science of predatory fish, hit that subscribe button right now. We are taking the power back from the corporations, one cast at a time. And I want to hear directly from you. The knowledge we share in the comments is the foundation of this resistance. What is the strangest, cheapest piece of trash, hardware scrap, or discarded household item you have ever tied to your line that actually caught a monster fish? Was it a pull tab, a spark plug, a piece of wire? Drop a comment below and share your exact build. I read every single story, and your real-world field experiences drive the direction of our next deep scientific investigations. When you take this upcycled weapon out to the lake, you must understand that presentation dictates your success. Because a standard bottle cap is relatively light, it naturally wants to run near the surface upon retrieval. If you are targeting deep structure, you must ballast the lure. You can achieve this by filling the internal cavity entirely with hot glue or clay before sealing it, massively increasing its overall density while maintaining that crucial metallic flash on the exterior. Once properly weighted, cast it out, but do not just blindly reel it straight back to the boat like a mindless machine. You must let gravity and the asymmetrical geometry of the cap do the work. Use a methodical stop-and-go retrieve. Reel for 3 seconds, then completely pause. During that pause, the asymmetrical fold forces the metal cap to flutter and spiral erratically downward through the water column, exactly like a wounded baitfish entering its final exhausted death throes. That sudden, unpredictable fall is the exact moment the strike happens. The base does not have time to analyze the lack of 3D eyes or the missing paint job. Its lateral line feels the chaotic vortex shedding. Its optic nerve registers the violent metallic flash, and its brain demands an immediate, involuntary reaction strike. You do not need to spend your paycheck to outsmart an apex predator. You just need to understand the physical language of the water. Raid the recycling bin, grab your pliers, and let the pure hydrodynamics of the natural world do exactly what millions of years of evolution programmed it to do. Keep your hooks sharp, trust the science, and I will see you out there.